All right, 5. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today on Live with Leah, Talent Tuesday. On this fine Tuesday, June 8th, my guest today is Jordan Bouchard. Is it Bouchard? Bouchard?
It's Bouchard.
Bouchard. Okay. I want to be correct here. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited about our conversation today. We're going to be talking about the state of nursing and healthcare recruitment in the post-pandemic type of world that we're living in. So I'm excited for everybody to join us. Let us know when you log in, if you're on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're watching this, most likely LinkedIn Live. Go ahead and pop a comment in and let us know where you're watching from today. And if you have any questions for Jordan about anything we discussed, please just pop those in the comments as well. Hit the like button or share and let us know that you're watching. All right, well, let's get started. Mr. Bouchard, would you please go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience today?
Absolutely. Well, hi, everyone. Jordan Bouchard with K. Bassman. I am a healthcare consultant, been independently consulting for about 11 years and recruiting for over the last 5, primarily in healthcare for the last 4. And I want to first and foremost thank you, Leah. This has been such an amazing opportunity, and I've had so much fun getting prepared for this.
Really? I'm so glad. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, getting to talk to hundreds of healthcare leaders, specifically nursing leaders, CNO, directors of nursing every day. One of them that really stood out to me was Rebecca Love, a founder of HireNurses.com, and the first nurse actually to give a TED Talk. She had an article about nursing shortage that was in Fortune. Absolutely a great read. Please go see it. In it, she mentions how we had the largest retirement of nurses ever in the last
in 2020 or like over the past.
Absolutely, in the last year. And there's a forecast for another 500,000 nurses to be retiring by 2022. Collectively, that leaves us with over 1.1 million in shortage for healthcare professionals in nursing.
So like 1.1 million vacancies basically that haven't been filled or won't be filled.
Exactly. And in it, she goes even into a deeper dive that really expresses part of what I want us to touch on today. And that's about 155,000 nurses join annually. Out of that number, more than half leave the bedside within 2 years because of either burnout, lack of engagement, or inability for vertical climb within an organization.
So the lack of career development or improvement. Wow. Absolutely. Okay. That is just wild. I'm so glad that you brought that up. And did you want to say the name of the article again from Fortune?
Absolutely. From Fortune, it's going to be called America's Nurse Shortage is a Crisis in the Making. Training Nurses to Be Leaders Could Solve It, by Rebecca Love and Daniel Pianco, I believe.
Okay. Well, Joanne will go ahead and look that up today and put that in the comments for anybody that would like to watch or go and read that article that Jordan referenced. And so I'm excited to talk about that because I knew that a lot of what you wanted to talk about is kind of how the nurse recruitment the nurse recruitment industry, the healthcare recruitment industry has been made so much more difficult because there has been this shortage. Before we get into the full interview and discussion that we're going to have, I wanted you to go ahead and give the audience a little bit about your background. You have a very unique background. You're from the North, like me too. Not born were you born and raised in Houston or in Texas?
No, actually, I was born in Las Vegas. I'm very proud to say that. We joke around out in Las Vegas, if you can make it 90 days, you're a native. But I was actually born out there. My father went to the original Las Vegas High.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then you attended college in Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact,
And
trying to play football at University of Colorado is what exposed me to recruitment.
mhm.
Really where my foundation of seeing players come in and out and seeing why they would choose a university compared to another one was my first exposure and really what got me fascinated in this industry.
That's so interesting. So I actually played soccer at the University of Wyoming. And so I remember recruitment trips and we would host recruits. And I didn't really know what the recruiting industry was outside of just sports recruiting. I didn't realize at that time in my life, in my wonderful youth, I didn't realize that there was a full industry around finding the right people for the right job, or organizations. And it made so much sense to me in sports. Like, right, you got to find the right players or the right people for the specific team or the spot on the team, and they can come from anywhere. And using that analogy, like going forward in sports, like it has helped me quite a bit to understand. And I remember back to like recruit trips, and you showed them the absolute best of the team. You showed them the best of the facilities, and you tried to show them all the benefits of what it was like to be an athlete there. And so it's a lot of the same thing with recruiting. But one of the things I don't think is we give everybody a really realistic preview. We try to just show them all the highlights all the time.
Well, and it's fascinating you say that. I had a leader in this industry that it shared with me. He goes, nobody wakes up and says, I want to be a locums recruiter when I grow up.
Nobody
don't know that this industry exists. And it's hilarious because, as you said, so many recruiters, especially in the athletic environment, it is the best presentation. The greatest trick I was taught during it was actually getting a photo of an individual and sending it massively out to everyone he or she may touch. That way, when you saw the individual that was coming in for recruitment, you could see their face and go, hey, Larry, welcome to the team.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And now you're not just picturing yourself, you're picturing yourself part of the organization. Mm-hmm. And this is part of the small tips and tricks that eventually we'll go into of how recruiting firms, not agencies, but actual firms can assist HR and be an extension of them and not an antagonist with them, but trying to add value by coaching. I mean, this is what we do professionally, but you brought up an even better point, Leah, where it was an unrealistic preview. During my regime at Colorado, we had 2 coaches, but 3 ADs. And we were in the midst. So interim AD.
Okay.
The last one said no false advertisement. We're going to show you the hill, which is a beautiful part of Boulder, Colorado. We're going to show you the amazing amenities you get as an athlete, where dinner is served as a steak. But I'm going to show you the day-to-day life of a student. Also, it was mandatory that recruits had to go to a class and see that athletes were expected to be front row in every class.
We didn't have to do that. They basically took us to a lot of nice restaurants and, out to parties.
Well, I'm not saying that other things weren't there. I'm pretty sure Colorado had a lovely PR issue.
Yeah, right. I know.
We called it being a student for a day. And I like to apply that to the practices of my clients, saying the easiest way to be bought in on an opportunity is to show a day in the life. In fact, the first question I talk to candidates about is, walk me through a typical day and week starting at 7 or 8 a.m. But what is it you currently do? But on the flip side, when you're visiting an opportunity, I want them to already see how their schedule, life, and values fit into the practice, not on a utopian desire, but on an actual need and want basis.
So, okay, you do that on the candidate side, which makes a whole lot of sense. Do you do that more on the organizations that you work with, that you're a consultant with, that you are a partner with? Do you have them provide what a day in the life of, X employee, of this nurse is going to be? Is that something that you've seen to be helpful in recruiting people?
Absolutely. In fact, I believe one of the largest differences in being what we joke around as a resume gatherer or a true recruiter is the ability to actually tell what the opportunity is. People don't join practices, they join stories. In a candidate short market, the difference in obtaining and attracting high quality talent is truly having great leadership and someone that can show the opportunity through multiple lenses. And what I try to do is understand it. I like going out, seeing opportunities firsthand, seeing the equipment that will be used. Details that not necessarily would always be shared, but it's best to know them so you can go, hey, are you used to this EMR? It's a small detail, but if they're not asking the small questions, I know they're not bought in. So I need to be able to have them to be able to provide and gauge whether or not that was something of interest to a candidate.
Yeah, I mean, that makes complete sense. That's something that we really strive to do as well, providing a realistic job preview. And we actually use video for that. And, we started creating these videos, and we've been doing it for many years, actually. We call them video jobs at first. It's a little confusing, but basically it's a preview of what it's like to work in an organization. And it really helps. It creates, it brings down that barrier to entry. It brings down that hesitancy to like, I don't know if I could work there, or I don't know what it's like there. You kind of get a snapshot. And we try to make it as realistic as possible. Not just the glitz and the glam, if there ever is such a thing in healthcare. But it's not just the highlights, it's not just like you said, the really nice dining facility or the really great benefits or this or that. It's a real life. This is what our facility looks like. These are the people who work here. This is what the culture is about. And if you're thinking about coming here, this is what a day is like here. And it has been an absolute eye opener for a lot of candidates, and also for healthcare facilities to be like, I never knew that somebody would want to know that. Like, of course they want to know what EMR they're going to be using. Of course they want to know about like your monitoring software. They want to know. And a lot of the little details are sometimes, I wouldn't say make or break, but they can very much entice people, and they can also make people feel far more comfortable with a potential move to a new job.
Absolutely. And I think there's a big difference between hiring and recruiting.
Okay.
In a sense, you have a posting, you put it online. Well,
you're posting and praying?
You're posting and praying. Thank you. The stuff that we use here in the industry, right?
Right.
But it's not just that, because maybe you do reach out to independent agencies or firms and you have a relationship going, but there still needs to be that we want you feeling, because the candidates know they're the one on the short side. And if you're not showing them love, somebody will. One of my favorite quotes in football is, if you don't pick up the ball and run with it, somebody else will. Or Wayne Gretzky's, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
It isn't, I understand that your organization is great, and it really is an amazing opportunity most of the time, but it still needs to be an actual recruitment and attraction when landing a candidate. A lot of my metaphors are either sports or dating. And I joke around when it comes to hiring, you would never job post a wife or husband.
Okay, wait, expand on this.
When you're attracting a quality candidate to join your organization, would you really go on in today's age, maybe with social dating, very successful, driven, loud, energetic, does snore, tends to eat non-healthy foods, looking for sports loving girl next door? You're not going to list that. Why? There needs to be a dance. There needs to be a romance.
Okay.
More importantly, energy has to fit. And I think we cut out a lot of the excitement from recruitment. And this is where bringing in a firm can help, because it gets that excitement back.
Okay.
And what it does is it engages both the client and the candidate. My mentor in the industry, Mike Belkin, absolutely the greatest person I've ever worked with or for in my entire life. Mike always would say, you need consistent communication and a sense of urgency. If you have those two things, there's nothing that can't be fixed, but we have to keep those going. And unfortunately, I feel like we dry the process out too much sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, so, you know, with the whole ability to be able to apply directly to a job and talk directly to a recruiter from an agent or from a company, does adding a firm or an outside agency, does that complicate the process? Or is there a reason why you would bring in a firm like yours or like ours that makes more sense than complicating the process?
Leah, that's an amazing question. First, my immediate response is, when you have a plumbing issue, you call a plumber. When you need something done landscape, you call landscape. You call professionals.
Okay.
What we do as recruitment firms is specifically this. I talk to over 100 candidates in my niche every day. That's more than the in-house recruitment efforts are going to be able to do in over a month. And I do it every single day. But more importantly, and this is to all the HR leaders that are watching, so many individuals in this industry are undervalued. And sadly, we classify human resources as a non-revenue generating department, when at its core, one of my partners here at the firm said it best to me today, going, they're the foundation of finance. The retainment of actual resources or talent saves more money than most actually generate. In fact, Harvard Business Review did a study on nurses and found that the turnover in nursing costs more than $90,000 per hospital yearly from lack of engagement. Well, bringing us in is not meant to replace HR or complicate a process. In fact, because especially during the pandemic, people started shortening roles and overextending the duties of individuals. We're here to help you be an add-on and not to go from 1st and 10 to 1st and 20. We're not throwing a flag on the play. We want to get to the ultimate same goal and stay in communication while you focus on the other fires in your organization.
Right. And I think that one of the things that you said there was that a lot of people are being asked to do more during this time, you know, where the past year has been really difficult. And there's a lot of across the organizations that I work with my clients, I have seen it firsthand where their HR department or their recruiting and talent acquisition, their marketing department are being asked to do so many other things. I mean, I even had clients that their HR department was like, hey, we have to train you guys how to do, to be outside and like, you know, wear gloves and masks and do check-ins for people that are coming to get tests or people that are coming to get vaccinations. Like they were literally pulled every single direction, completely outside of their scope of work. And then they're also expected to do all the work that they have to do on a regular basis. And recruiting kind of fell by the wayside, but it was super important because they didn't have enough people. So it was this really strange dichotomy of there's not enough people to do the work, but we're not focusing on actually hiring the people. It was all hands on deck. And I think that what agencies, or I'm sorry, firms like yours or like mine were able to do is help everybody step back and say, okay, let us handle the recruitment part. You handle like you said, the fires on the job. You handle the absolute emergencies at your facility. We will continue to recruit on an ongoing basis. And I think that in and of itself shows the power of having an outside strategic resource to assist you, not compete against you.
Not at all. In fact, Recruiting World had a beautiful piece that was non-biased. And in it, what they stated was essentially the recruiter has a unique aspect when being added to an organization that, although he is hired in a different capacity by a firm, he gets to represent both the candidate and the client. There are things a candidate will share with me that he or she will not feel comfortable always expressing immediately with the in-house recruiter or the organization itself.
Mhm.
Because with me, there's opportunity for more if this does or doesn't work out. But what it really does is it allows me to go, hey, this is going to be the deal breaker. If we can come in here, we're going to secure him. In fact, you know what? I noticed he's not picking up the phone, X, Y, and Z. He's going on an interview elsewhere. Let's get in front of him now. Can we get the hiring decision makers right now in front, bring him in next Thursday, and let's get him an offer before his other meeting. Let's secure him or her right now. And an example of that is I had a client up in rural Michigan.
Okay.
The health organization was breaking down. It was pre-pandemic, and they decided to replace in-house recruitment with the duties of human resources. So now someone who has never recruited before or tried to attract talent is taking over the job boards, the postings, and unfortunately,
Wow.
never done that capacity before. Well, luckily, we reached out, able to fly out, see the opportunity firsthand, a position that was open for more than 3 years. I was able to fill in 21 days.
Oh, that's amazing. A nursing position?
It was a nursing position. In fact, with Mid-Michigan.
Okay.
And the beauty of it was it immediately allowed the HR director to go back to onboarding, focusing on dentistry, maybe some of the physician needs. There's more than one can do, but by reaching out with the resources available, there's solutions to many of the fires. And I just try to be an added on service.
No, and that's all that we can do, be a strategic partner and offer that type of consulting and coaching and service. So one of the things that I wanted to kind of transition to, I wanted to say hello to a couple people that are online right now. Ronnie Franca is on. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us. Let us know where you're logging in from today. I see Joanne and Rollis. Thank you so much for joining us. Melissa and Trent, he says, love it. Great content. Thank you guys for joining us today and letting us know that you're watching. If there's anything specific you want to hear from Jordan, somebody who has been in this industry for 11 years, 7 years?
Over 11 years consulting.
Okay. And then, in this type of recruitment space for quite a while, please let me know. I will ask him the question. I'll make sure that he sees it because he has so much industry knowledge and he has a very specific industry knowledge, especially in healthcare recruiting. So I think that if you have those questions, please go ahead and ask.
Which, Leah, if you don't mind, I wanted to share a story.
Yeah, go ahead, please do.
Because what I find interesting is people constantly come to me and say, but Jordan, we're in a new world. We're in a new world. There's new challenges, we're facing coming out of a pandemic, and the world has changed. What it takes to be successful hasn't. So Let me share this story with you. One of my best friends growing up went to college initially getting her bachelor's in anthropology, sociology, and education. Mm-hmm. As soon as she graduated, over 5,000 teachers were laid off in California. Bad time to go into the teaching environment.
Pretty terrible.
Rerouted, went back to school, veterinary medicine. It wasn't as challenging, fulfilling, or purposeful as she wanted. So she deep dived one more time and went into ultrasound. She graduated first in her class and second in her program out of her entire graduation block. Now, one of the issues we have in healthcare is even graduating first in her class as a new grad couldn't get her hired. Now, luckily, her friend happened to be a recruiter in the healthcare industry, reached out to me and went, AMN Healthcare at the time was my employer, largest healthcare recruitment firm in the country. We'll get you hired. Don't worry about it, Hillary. It's not my space. We'll get it done. Well, we actually couldn't find an opportunity. So the beauty, though, is luckily there is a positive ending in this story. I reached out to her and said, why don't you apply to AMN? She goes, Jordan, I already have. We haven't found any jobs. No, not with AMN, to AMN. And Hillary, I asked her to come and shape the industry in a different capacity.
Okay.
Now, she not only went without any sales credentials or experience into a recruiter role, but was quickly promoted to manager and is currently interviewing as a director of recruitment for nurse finders in AMN. The reason I bring up this story is for three purposes. One, to show the paradox that we have in the industry of we're a growing shortage, but we can't even get new graduates into roles or positions, and it's creating a bigger shortage. Secondly, what adding a recruiter or firm to you does by being able to see talent and redirect it to places that others maybe wouldn't see because it's not the profession they do day in and day out. And lastly, and Leah, this is a topic I want to get into later, is personal and professional growth. As we touch on mental health and scrape the surface on it, what Hillary Hauser, by the way, I want to give her a shout out. Applying and right now interviewing for director. If you are looking at per diem or any kind of local assignments in nursing or allied healthcare, reach out to her. Absolutely amazing. But as the story shows, we have an issue in healthcare right now where we need to get people going, but we can't even find the ability to get new grads into new roles.
Well, I think a lot of the struggle there, and I'm really happy that you shared that story because it is, it's very, very pertinent to what we're talking about. But I think that a lot of organizations lose sight of the fact that creating that pipeline of growth and career development is very, very important. There is a nurse shortage. We know that there's not enough nurses to meet the demand that there currently is and for the growth of the position. However, there are new nurses graduating all the time. And I don't believe that enough organizations are paying attention to that. They have really small new grad programs, right? They're very selective new grad programs. And my question has always been, why aren't those expanded? Why aren't they done in like cohort programs? Why aren't they, a lot of the reason is they'll say, oh, we don't have enough preceptors or there's not enough money for the program. But I feel like if you can put them in smaller groups or expand the program, you're creating your own pipeline of new nurses and you have less of a need for, paying the massive expenses of turnover and attrition. You have a lot less need to use outside agencies or to use travelers. And I have never understood where that breakdown is between we have lots of nurses graduating and they don't want to go to med surg, and that's all that locations are offering, right? So there has to be a better way to bring them in and train them within your organization and create that initial engagement that's going to keep them there.
Yeah, Leah, you bring up an amazing point. In fact, in the article by Rebecca Love that I mentioned earlier, she actually spoke about, and this hits me on my heart, in Las Vegas, Sunrise Hospital in 2015, the retention rate of new nurses was only about 50%. They started a STAR RN program that spelled STARN. And with it was not only for new grads to be able to come in and find a role, but immediately attach them to leadership and show them vertical growth and mentorship. Now, just 4 or 5 years later, they're all the way up, I want to say, at 93%. We're talking about losing 7 out of 100, not 1 out of 2,
right,
from this program. Health Leaders yesterday put out an article. I haven't had time to fully read it, but a former client of mine in the anesthesia world, New Haven Hospital up in the Northeast, they are doing a new leadership program. Absolutely amazing what they're doing here. Instead of their apprentice program that they had for years, which was aligning with experienced individuals in the capacity with new grads to bring them in, welcome them, and show them a day in the life, you're actually having one-on-one coaches. And what they've shown is their retention has gone from 42% all the way to 91 in 2 years.
So is that like a formalized mentorship coaching program? It's not just people finding a mentor on their own, because that's really common in any industry. You know, you seek out somebody that can help you, that can sponsor you in your career, that can help teach you and coach you. But I believe in formalized mentorship programs across any industry. And it makes so much sense. And obviously the proof is in the numbers that they went from a 40% retention rate up to 90%. And I'm guessing that's retention after 1 year, because we know that nurses, like the 90-day retention rate is quite low.
Absolutely. And it's not just the actual utilization of a coach, which you mentioned.
Okay.
It's getting the right leaders into the roles. No, a lot of hospitals were using those that have been there longer. And in sports, that'd be like saying your quarterback of 18 years should become the head coach. Well,
right, because he's done it for a long time, but he might not be a great coach.
Absolutely. In fact, another article people should read is Ann Harrington. It's on Nursing Standard about nurse leadership styles.
Okay.
And it goes into, the one that stood out to me was, leaders need to be able to attract the attention of those that want or may not even know they need leadership. And it's grabbing its magnitude, right? Mm-hmm. And having a presence. With the program specifically with New Haven, it's 24/7 on the clock, even if you're in a different building or department. At Johnson & Johnson, right, it says there's 68 specialties for nurses to go into. Well, you can't teach that all in school.
There's no way.
Like, there's no clinical rotation for urology. And one of the issues that we have right now in healthcare is hospitals are hoping for schools to do the orientation. Well, you can't simulate every situation in a rounding. And I think if we can touch on this and fix it right now, we have an amazing opportunity in front of us. In fact, Leah, I know when you're speaking with clients, do people keep asking you about what the new normal is going to be?
Yeah, and I hate that term so much. Like, I feel like the new normal makes one think that there was some type of normalcy before, and then there was a break in that, and then there's a new type. And I feel like it's more of a continuum. We were going in an unsustainable path, right? And this world pandemic, this global thing happened to all of us. And you can pick out the day that you started working from home, or you can pick out the day that, this changed or what changed, but it's more of a continuum, and things have transitioned, and there is going to be a lot of new things. But the thing is, I don't know if it's normal, right? It's just the new, and I don't want to say order either, because that's a little conspiracy weird, right? But there is, we've transitioned into a new way of doing business, a new way of operating in our lives. People are not working in the same ways. Organizations rapidly changed the way that they deliver products, they deliver services. We changed the way that we're working. Children changed the way they were going to school. So it's not, to me, sorry, this is a big tangent. I just don't like the term new normal. It's a new way of life, and we are rapidly changing and transitioning, and we're trying to keep up. And all the time, people are like, what's going to happen next? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but the trajectory is showing us that you need to keep up, right? Like, if you have a website that's not mobile optimized, you need to keep up. If you have, really old HR policies, you need to keep up. You need to change those things. Because it's just not acceptable anymore. The world requires better now. The world requires more. And if that's new normal, I guess that's what it is. Sorry, that was a long tangent to say that.
It's the reason I asked it, though. What I've been telling clients is, it isn't necessarily a new normal. It's a new expectation or standard.
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. A new standard.
And uniquely coming out of this pandemic, Rebecca loving that conversation with me. She says, everyone wants to get back to the old way. Everyone wants to get back to how things were. Everyone wants that pre-life, sports being fully capacitated, concerts coming in where you pack the stands, being able to go to the grocery store and talk to the person without the glass so you can understand when you go, that's not the right change, right? Having the mask,
Right.
you going back, but it wasn't working, especially in healthcare. So my call to action to leaders, those that aspire to be, those that are currently in it, and those that were, is now more than ever, we have a unique opportunity where we know it's broken, but we can fix it. Transparency has happened in healthcare more than ever during this pandemic. We have transparency in pricing being asked from an insurance standpoint, a transparency in practice methodology being asked of, well, why aren't we fixing this? Where's it here? Yesterday, FDA finally has the first approval on an Alzheimer methodology, which, by the way, a little shout out, a great unknown book is Something in the Way by B.B. Brawley.
By B.B. Can you say it again?
Brawley, Bralley. It's a wife's journal of her one-on-one experience with the love of her life, and which is why it's called Something's in the Way. An amazing journey of what a firsthand experience with Alzheimer's really is. And as we grow every day with something new in healthcare, we can change it for once. It isn't just, that's how it is.
Yes. And for so long, people are like, well, that's how we've always done it. That's how we have to keep on doing it. And thank you for interjecting there and coming up with that term, the new standard. And I love that because there's nothing necessarily normal about it. Our lives changed overnight. The way we do everything changed very rapidly. And there's a new standard. And I agree, we can do better. And especially specifically about the industry that we're talking about and the way that we bring people in and hire them and employ them. It has to be better because there's no other option. Organizations will completely fail if they're not able to staff those positions. And so I think that a lot of organizations have realized they're at kind of a tipping point or a turning point. Like, okay, we really do need to pay attention to this now. I had an example, I think I shared it with you. I had a client that couldn't open a surgical wing of their hospital because it was as if they didn't foresee the need, that they were going to reopen. I mean, obviously that was an unknown at the time, but because of staffing, they were losing tens of millions of dollars a month just because there wasn't enough foresight in there to say, we need to make sure that these nurses are paid during the time that they're off. And we need to be able to open that whole wing of the hospital again when we get the green light. And I think that successful organizations are already looking at how do we staff people? How do we engage new talent? And how do we keep the talent that we already have?
Well, and Leah, with it, and it's my underlying theme throughout this entire conversation, great and correct leaders attract and retain high quality talent. Right now, if we position ourselves, especially with so many hospitals laying off managers or directors under chiefs or under directors, causing overflow of duties, putting the right people in place, nursing, not to keep mentioning Rebecca Love, but there was a line out of everyone I spoke to that I never thought of before. Mm-hmm. And it goes into the mental health aspect that I want to go into.
Okay.
A line every nurse knows is save a life, you're a hero. Save 100, you're a nurse. Well, in my opinion, during the pandemic, that sad realization got even a little sadder. Mm-hmm. It went from save a life, be a hero, to save 100, and you're a nurse that didn't do enough. The exposure we had in this pandemic, and Rebecca Love said, we're not recognized by our successes or saves, but only our failures. In nursing, you're leaving work and no one's calling saying, thank you for what you did. But instead it's, did you type in the notes in the EMR? Hey, did you actually finish up on the chart and do X, Y, and Z with patient 1, 2, or 3? It's the mental health aspect is not only causing burnout, but disengagement. And another fun article, great read. I'm sorry,
no, it's okay. And I think Joanne is looking a lot of these up, and she'll be putting them in the comments for those that are interested, that want to make sure that they read what Jordan is recommending.
Absolutely. And please know, as I mentioned these articles, my favorite part of the human experience, in my opinion, that separates us from animals is the ability to continuously improve. That the continued education, the reading, the self-development, what we can do every day. You can go learn a new language with a language duo or with the other tools. But in the article, it was through Health Leaders by Carol Davis on nurse engagement. She said 15 out of 100 nurses feel disengaged. Now,
and when was that, like prior to the pandemic?
The study was done by, and I'm sorry, I feel like healthcare is brought to you by Hooked on Phonics. We have so many acronyms in this industry, right? Yeah. Like AONL, AONE are two of the best organizations that I find stuff coming through. But the study was done by AONL in 2018, I believe. And what it said was, the cost of disengagement, not being bought in, not being asked for participation, or sadly, being asked to do more than they're ready or prepared for, is a cost of $22,200 per nurse. Now, that you sit there and go, okay, so it's about a third to a fourth of a salary. Well, let's take a small organization that has 100 nurses. Not engaging them is costing you $250,000 a year on burnout and turnover. But how about your large health systems, your Cleveland clinics, right? 15,000 nurses, $50 million is the cost. And now I sit here and go, why wouldn't you bring in a recruiting agency that can assist you in engagement, retainment, and recruitment, even if it's in a contingent basis at first, before engaging in a joint effort for continuous recruitment efforts? Because there's so much more than just bringing a talent on, it's keeping them. And
absolutely.
In Carol Davis's article, she goes into a few that the point I really wanted, I'm interested in yours, because we're almost in that age group, right? It said that Generation Z actually takes a culture fit above payroll, salary, and bonuses. So before the
I believe that 100%.
Which all of our baby boomers, that's what it was. Give me the benefits, let me take care of the family.
Give me the benefits and the salary.
Exactly. And now it's, as we discover who we are individually, it's having a culture that is not a word or a press point, right? That we stay, but some we stand by, is actually more important than saying throwing money at the problem, which I imagine you're hearing a lot of as well.
Yeah, I am hearing a lot of that. And I think that across any industry, not just in healthcare, the next generation of workers are very socially conscious. And I think that that's a good new development. I don't think it's necessarily negative in any way, shape, or form. I think it's going to encourage and possibly force a lot of organizations that do things that, don't add benefit to society. They're going to be forced to make that progress, to make those moves forward, to really make stands on certain social issues or climate issues or, whatever they may be, because if you don't align yourself with a certain type of culture, you're losing out on a large portion of potential talent. And obviously the baby boomers is the largest generation that was in the workforce at the time. And now the millennials are the largest workforce in the generation. And we're losing a ton of people as they retire. There's going to be a huge retirement gap in the next coming years where I don't know if you've read anything on, there's like basically an information drain. So there's people that have been in industries for 30 years that are going to be leaving, and the people that are there have only been there for 10, and they don't know all the things that the 30-year employees knew. And that information, how do you pass that information between generations? How do you pass that information between employees? And then to add to that, you have new employees that some of those things, they just don't frankly matter to them. And maybe some of it's really obsolete information. So it's going to be very interesting to see how organizations align their, mission, vision, values, and their culture to bring in a certain segment of the population.
No, you're 100% right. And I truly believe it's great as we start discovering who we are individually and how we fit with organizations. In an article, and I don't remember when, it was years ago, it was let me introduce you to millennials. And
Okay.
it said that the first career change is almost at age 30 now. And we do 3 career changes in a typical life instead of 2, like the baby boomers. And with it, as you said, the turnover, the loss of information, take the securities in the finance industry. 3/4 of the employees of all of our wealth management are above the age of 60.
Right.
And after the last recession, we let go of almost everyone under the age of 30 at the time. That would now be your 30 to 45 gap.
Right.
As a result, we have new grads and individuals, the only ones that are taught on how to grow, manage, and develop wealth, any day could decide to retire and go, you know what, it's time to spend more time with my husband, wife, or kids.
So in that same vein, I want to, and I agree, like there's so many people that are like, yeah, it's just time to spend time living and having a good life. So, and that speaks to the burnout and the turnover and mental health. What have you seen organizations that you've been working with, what have you seen them do to encourage their employees or provide resources for their employees with mental health or to combat that burnout?
It's the first thing that I've seen that is successful, because I've seen a lot. But what I've seen successful is, and it's not the sexiest option, but immediately putting it in the employee package, increase vacation time instead of accruing, put it in the beginning.
So you're not accruing, you have to work there for so long to actually take a vacation. We just give you this vacation because you're a human being and you literally can't work every day.
Exactly. Instead of having them burn out before obtaining it, let's hit it immediately. Next is
amazing.
Telehealth options.
Okay.
Mike Belkin, my mentor, he always said that life's going to give you enough negativity. It's up to you to feed yourself the positivity you desire and need on a day-to-day basis. So it's important to remind individuals to seek out, if it's reading Bible passages or motivational quotations, maybe a good book. I understand people like their Netflix, and if it's how you spend time with your family,
right,
that's always important. Family first, and in healthcare, patients first. Right. That's the whole reason we're here. But if it's not for family engagement, I challenge you to pick up a book and read it cover to cover instead of maybe Yellowstone coming back on Father's Day. The beauty of online and all these documentaries is they're out there. Once it's on the internet, it's never going off.
I think that in that is like, you have to encourage people to take care of themselves, but then you also have to provide the time to do that. And there's all these hilarious memes online that are like, great, I hope your weekend, do you have these reports ready on Monday, but please enjoy your weekend. And, how are you supposed to deal with self-care or even scratch the surface of taking care of one's mental health and combating burnout when we're always on, we're always accessible by our phones? A few years ago in France, they actually have a new law that is a it's basically like a non-contact law, but employees have the right to not be accessible for a certain amount of hours every week. So they can, and you can't, they can't be reprimanded or fired because they weren't accessible during that specific time. And it's crazy to think that, amazing, I guess, for them. But I don't think we're ever anywhere close to that in the US. We're far too free economy and free market. But thinking about that, like, wow, they had to literally say, you can't contact me and you can't fire me because I didn't answer. Okay. I've seen some stuff where organizations are like, no Zooms on Friday. Or you can take out, let's do a 4.5 day work week. But does it really matter if the half of the Friday you're spent frantically trying to finish a project, or Sunday night you're like trying to get things done for Monday morning? It's like we have to create a system that works for more people, because we have seen burnout across lots of industries, but especially in healthcare.
Leah, as you were telling me about that with France, and everyone, I believe, has seen these commercials. I was thinking about Progressive with Flo when they go to the beach, right? And it's okay, guys, no insurance talk today. And everyone's laying down. And all of a sudden, a guy and a girl start talking about, oh, I love my boat, but it's so expensive to cover. And you have Flo scratching Flo, don't do it. Don't do it. And then guy goes, oh, I know, my car. I wish there was a way to like put them together and say, bundle snapshot.
Yeah.
We can create, and the reason I bring this up is we can create ideas, but until it's mutually engaged, it's not going to have a purpose or function. So I think instead of just throwing money at the problem, which is taking time off, or saying no Zooms, which may add to the actual stress, right? If you can't communicate at the end of the week, and now a problem that could have been solved in 30 minutes is going to go 72 hours, right? What if it was, I needed an amendment on the contract? I think we need to actually take time and allow representation of the employees to occur and allow them to speak what they want. There's no one solution to our issues right now, because situations are situational. It's my favorite line to use, because you can do one-offs all day. But the easiest answer to this is, let's ask the individuals who will be impacted and then formulate the best answer from the data that is gathered. The scientific method has never been wrong. You can have a hypothesis, but before you have a conclusion, you need to gather data and test it.
Right. No, and that makes a lot of sense. Oops, sorry. And I think that I want to continue this conversation with you in the future on where we're going and where organizations are going and what they're doing that makes their employees' lives better, because that's a massive part of engagement is, obviously they have to be hired and do a great job, but how do you continue to keep them and engage them and let them grow as human beings, as an employees? And one of the things that I've often thought about is it the employer's job? Is it their duty to provide that? Is that inherent in the contract that we sign being an employee? Do they owe us a duty of taking care of us, or is that our own to work out? And if it's our own, do we have to, unionize and say, you have to treat us this way? It's kind of a very cyclical, back to like the Industrial Revolution, of how people were like, you can't treat us this way. You have to treat us better. And I'm seeing it again, more of like in a social movement than an actual codified union, but people are saying you have to treat us better or we won't go to work. Like how a lot of people, or how a lot of service jobs right now can't find people to work. And people are saying, well, treat us better, do better, offer more than $7 an hour, $7.50 or whatever it is. So I think it'll be really interesting. And I definitely want to continue that conversation with you in the future about this. So as we wrap up today, for the audience to be able to get to know you just a little bit more, I wanted to ask you a couple of fun questions. So you have a lot of, you've had a lot of experience, like you did financial advising, you've done real estate, and you've done a lot of consulting. So you've worked with a lot of people throughout, and contracts and humans and whatnot. But if there was a subject that I told you that you had to present on tomorrow for 20 minutes, outside of business, what would it be? What is something that you could talk about? No problem.
Motivation.
Okay.
Motivation. I joke around in my family. In fact, staying in this confinement of a camera for those that know me and that are watching must be laughing, because I always move. I'm always animated and getting around. I truly believe Red Bull, Monster, and 5 Hour Energy followed my family around and just took something from us and served it to the rest. Having purpose when you wake up. And I truly believe when you find something you're passionate about, it's easier to wake up, but it's easier to do what you got to do during the day. And it's why I'm in healthcare, because I want to shape this industry. It's the most overlooked but most pertinent thing to us as humans, is not only helping us, but correcting us. And if I was to go on a stage in front of 1 million people tomorrow, which would be awesome, give me a microphone.
That's crazy. Most people would be like, no, thank you.
Oh,
no,
I want it. If it was safe for individuals to do, I would love to have it Madison Square Garden packed to the top and get in front. But I truly want to instill some of the passion or energy I have every day and show others that positivity and negativity is a choice. It's not a way of life. You have to put positive people around you. Babe Ruth said it best: you can have 11 superstars, but if they continue to play as individuals, you'll never win. And put my mom and dad instilled in me, I guess, to kind of answer that. Surround yourself with great individuals, and you yourself will become great. I truly am a believer in that you can choose to love what you do every day, but it has to align.
Is your dad Jeff?
Absolutely.
Okay, he's watching right now, and he said that you're doing a phenomenal job.
My dad.
How awesome.
I love him. Both my parents are trailblazers in their individual industries. And what my dad has been able to do with simply lifting others up. You know, earlier in the conversation, I said that the world has changed, but what it takes to succeed hasn't. And one of my messages would be to a new grad is, don't get locked in on just self-growth, but win with others. Don't just be alone on top with nothing to do or no one to celebrate with. Together, everyone achieves more. Isn't a cheesy line, third graders are taught while playing soccer or baseball.
Right.
An actual message that and maybe it's because I was an offensive and defensive lineman, where you had individual battles, but collectively it was for the team to win. There's no statistical category for an offensive lineman. Instead, it's just whether or not you score. And if more people came together for a collective purpose, I truly believe that we would have a lot more wins.
I know that's pretty impressive. I think you should write something about that, or do a show about it, or a podcast. That makes a lot of sense. I guess, I mean, I've watched football all my life, but I didn't know that there's not a statistical category for that position. So I can imagine it could be very demotivating for people. Like if they were more after the individual success and fame, you wouldn't want to do that position, because there's no way to measure if you're doing a great job unless the other people on the line also are doing a great job.
In fact, the linemen are the nurses of football. Collectively, at the end of the day, they're the ones that are patient-centered or defense-centered. And they don't get the glory and the win like the physicians. In fact, here's my last step for you in this conversation.
Okay.
And I'll say it quick. Nurses face COVID-related patients 4 times more than physicians, and are 37% of healthcare worker deaths to COVID-related causes. However, we did 4 times more surveys and paperwork on physician burnout from COVID than we did on nursing. The quarterbacks get all the glory in football, but the linemen do the grunt work and push you forward.
Okay, so I know that Rollis, he's watching still, he's a massive football fan, and he could probably work with your analogies way more than I could. And I'm guessing that he's going to want to talk to you about expanding this. And I think it's a really great analogy, and it's something that people
make this understand. A multi-part series.
Yeah, let's
invite you back. We should do this again.
Yes, of course. No, we definitely should. And we're out of time for today, but it was so great to hear from you. And you have such a deep insight and knowledge about everything that we talked about today. And I think that you have an incredible way of communicating. And I really do think that you would be a phenomenal motivational speaker. So if you ever get the chance to speak in Madison Square Garden, I'll be there. I'll come for sure.
Well, Leah, the last thing I want to tell people, the reason I didn't self-promote, I didn't push myself, my firm, is I would rather you individually call and get to know me.
Okay.
You don't get to know someone over a short time. My phone number can be found on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Okay.
Call, introduce yourselves. I want to get to know you.
And that's always that last question that I ask my guests is, if somebody that's watching, they want to know more, they want to find out about working with you. And so you're saying LinkedIn is the best way to get a hold of you. All of your contact information is there.
Well, if you're still listening, 972-265-5379. 10 digits, give me a call.
Oh my gosh, that's impressive. That is, wow. That is like a recruiter extraordinaire. Just put that number out there.
Conversation. You never know what a high is going to be. Give me a call. Let's get to know each other.
That is so wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you. I thank you so much for everybody that joined us. Rawlis, of course, did love that analogy about nurses being the linebackers of healthcare, and makes a lot of sense. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I'll look forward to seeing you guys all next week on Talent Tuesday Live with Leah. And I agree, Jordan, let's make this a series, and I will have you back soon.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Oh no, he dropped off. I forgot to tell him. Jonathan.